3, 2, 1. So here we are again, conversations with interesting people, and my guest today, who I just met a few minutes ago, so it's Burgett, yes? So Jordan Burgett, and dude, I became a fan of yours just last night. I've been following you on social media, and I heard some of your music last night, but before we get too much into that, like tell everybody kind of who you are and what you do, and let's just get going.
No doubt. So, like you said, my name is Jordan Burgett. I'm a Cedar Rapids native, born and raised. I don't know. These bios are always kind of weird for me. I don't know, like, what like, sometimes people tell you, like, oh, yeah, tell me about yourself. And it's like, I don't know exactly what I need to say. But I don't know. I guess, yeah, I'm a music artist. I rap and I sing. I've been doing it for, I don't know, probably since I was, like, 15. Okay. I was, like, super suicidal at a really young age. I tried to kill myself when I was, like, 14.
Wow.
And so I was going through a really hard process. I started writing, and that was like my outlet, basically. That's where music was. I wasn't too serious about it just because it was a therapeutic thing. I was obsessive at first, and then when I started to get good at it, I kind of learned the hard way that, music takes a lot of work to get into. So there was some discouragement. I really was just like hit or miss about it after I kind of got knocked on my butt. And then I think when I was 20, I met Sho, or he goes by the Cubist. He's a engineer, producer out of Iowa City. He's like worked with people in New York. He was in New York for a long time. He's originally from Chicago, and he's like on the west side of town. My family's from the south side of town. So I just kind of identified with him. He reminds me a lot of like my older cousins or like my uncles, you know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
So I started working with him. We finished the single Muda Wolf in November of 2016, and Sho was vibing with it a lot. We just had like a natural chemistry when it came to working on music. And it was funny because backtracking a little bit, we first met because of Andre Wright, Humanize My Hoodie, Blue, Born Leaders United. Andre and I connected through Facebook. He was looking for like models. My cousin Stacy Walker, he's like a politician out here. Young guy, super smart.
That's how I met you too, Mr. Andre.
Yeah. Andre connects people. Like, I don't know. That's one of his big things. Sho said that too. Is like Andre's really good about just making sure that if you have one thing that you do, he knows someone else he can introduce you to and kind of connect all the dots. But
so he was on the show 3 people before you. In fact, this will be released in the future, obviously, but this week we're releasing our stuff with Andre.
Okay.
So I actually have my Humanize My Hoodie in the closet over there, and he's a cool guy. Like it was great to interview him. So that's cool. You know him too.
Yeah. No, he's super good vibes, and he's a smart dude. I like to like sit back and kind of check out just how he views things sometimes, just because I'm more, I guess I'm younger, so like I'm amongst like a lot of the people that, he's figuring out kind of how to connect with. But Andre's good about just being with the people. Like he'll be out there, he knows like the dialect, what's hot right now, you know what I mean? He's just a really smart guy, so I think like with him having the intent to do something good, he's great about knowing how to communicate it. That's what,
Sure.
Yeah. But no, so Andre had me as one of the models in the show, and he was like, I got somebody who does music, like, I'm going to introduce you to him. And so Sho came in that night. Everybody cleared out. Andre's like, rap those songs you did for me back in the car. And so I play him for Sho. Sho's vibing heavy. And he's like, all right, I'm going to play you some shit. And so I think it was the first or second beat was Muda Wolf. And I knew instantly. So he sent him to me. I went home, wrote it. Like I said, going back now in November of 2016, we had the track done. December, I go out with 2 people from a creative team I had put together called Omni. I was the artist.
Okay.
We had a stylist, a photographer, a videographer, and then a guy who ran like the street team. Just try to get like the movement, kind of up and running. And the stylist and then the videographer went to Chicago for a day trip in the cold of December, and we were going to record a music video. So we recorded Muda Wolf. filmed for like 8 hours. I don't even know if he had a stabilizer at that point. Like, we were just like, we're going to make a rugged video. We're going to, like, you know, put it out, whatever. And I had no understanding of, like, any of the stuff I know now. So it was just like, man, we're going to put it out. And I remember when we got done editing it, it was like the 26th or the 27th. I think it was the 27th, yeah, because I think that was the day that it came out. So it's like 1 o'clock, and we finally got done. And I look at him, and I'm like, dude, this shit's going to be big. And when I said that, I was thinking like 10,000 views, you know what I mean? And like, a couple hundred people sharing it or whatever. But I had to go to work. I uploaded it, I think at like 4 o'clock. And then I went into work. I like hopped in the shower. I didn't even look at my phone. My phone was about to die when I got there at 5. I plugged it in. And I remember my dad, I went to check my phone after it slowed down, and it was just pages of notifications. And I'm like, yo, what the fuck is going on? And my dad, I saw a text from my dad, so I opened it up, and he said, 6,000 views in 5 hours. Rumble, young man, rumble. And he says that to me all the time. And so I hadn't even seen the numbers yet, and I'm like, what the fuck is he talking about? So I opened up Facebook, and it was just like, I mean, people were going crazy for it. And like I said, it was like on it wasn't a shitty camera, but it wasn't the greatest. I don't think even he had a stabilizer. We're out in the cold of Chicago. We're finding locations as we're filming.
Sure. I mean, it wasn't like you had a huge crew from like MTV following you around with a 6-camera angle and all kinds of. I mean, you know, but still, it was real and raw, and it was you speaking to people. I mean, obviously, it connected.
100%. And so it was like, it was cool when we put it out and we saw like some of the analytics. Like, a lot of people in Chicago were sharing it too, and they probably recognized us being down there. But yeah, no. So the video ended up doing 65,000 views in a month. I think it was at like 14,000 in 24 hours. And I was actually hanging out with the girl who I didn't like. I knew it wasn't going to be like solid. We ended up like talking of her, like she broke up with her boyfriend to like kind of talk to me or whatever. And she had really, really bad anxiety. And it was just a crazy night. We went to a movie and we were going out to eat to like celebrate, I guess. And Andre called me like right as the credits come on the movie. And he's like, man, you got 14,000 views in 24 hours. That's crazy. I hadn't seen, so before we went in the movie, I think it was at like 10,000 or 11,000, and then it jumped another 3 or 4 while we were in there. And he's like, dude, this is crazy. And it's on Facebook, so it's a lot easier to share than through like YouTube, you know what I mean? So he was like, we got to do something. And he's like, what's the next song? What's the next move? At the time, I had no other music done. Mm-hmm. I started a record, Zodiac, and that would be my next video. I started a record, but I hadn't had anything ready. Like this is the first time I'm like about to like really go into the music journey, like for real. And I talked to him. She was in the car with me, and then I called my mom after, and my mom's freaking out, screaming. She's like, "Oh my God, I'm crying right now." And we went to Applebee's, and because I liked their like chocolate cake that they had there.
Shout out to Applebee's.
Yeah, shout out to Applebee's. And we had to leave because she had like some anxiety stuff going on. And I remember we got in the car, and this is like a part of the big defining moment. So it's gonna wrap around for when you were like, tell me about yourself. We got in the car, and she said something along the lines of, "I just feel like one day you're gonna blow up and forget all about me." And I was like, that was like the first kind of moment that I got exposed to people really recognizing like my talent or what I wanted to do, and then them seeing themselves in that picture. You know what I mean? And it just made me question. I was like, man, like, is this going to be kind of how the journey is all the time? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it was so small scale. And I know it's like almost laughable for me to be like looking that far in, but I was like, if I'm at an award show and Rihanna puts her arm around me, you know what I mean? Is this going to be a problem?
Yeah.
And so, no, I thought about that. And
Is Chris Brown there in that scenario?
No, I hope not. I heard he...
It could be a problem
yeah,
at that
no,
point.
I don't know. I love Chris Brown, but, yeah, nah, we'll see. We'll see. So, yeah, no, but I I then called show the next day, and because when I was talking to Andre, and I forgot to mention this, I was like, yeah, I got one track that I started. I'm like, I just have the intro, and it's like, I think I've got one of the verses written, but I got to like double check. So he was like, all right, we need a club joint. I'm going to plug you up at Eden in Iowa City. I know the owner there and the manager. That's where we're doing the next video. And I was like, all right, cool. And I just trusted Andre. I mean, he just, he had a vision about things. He connected with me a show. So he said Eden. I'm like, all right, we're doing it in Eden. I called show, and I don't even know if he remembers this conversation. But I had talked to him in November about, like, man, like, I think I want to take music seriously. I'm going to, like, drop out of school. And he was like, nah, you got to have a plan B, bro. And I think he was just trying to, protect me and have me make, like, a good decision that was going to be good for me all in all, because it's a cutthroat industry.
Sure. So you were in college at that point?
Yeah, I was at Kirkwood. And I was doing actually really well. I was on the dean's list. I was a student ambassador.
Okay.
They had me on, like, a couple of the billboards in town. So if you're in Cedar Rapids, you're driving through downtown, there was a big billboard of me out there, and then I was on the website. So I was like the little poster child for Kirkwood at the time. And I hadn't written a song in probably like 2 years, I think, or something like, or a year or something like that. So I was kind of going in the way. I was planning on going to school for business, emphasis in finance, getting my 7 series. I don't remember what it's called, but like to be a certified like financial guy or whatever. And I'd just been discouraged. Everybody told me not to do music. And so I talked to Show, and Show was another one where he was like, man, just make sure you're making the right decision. And then when I hit him after Muda Wolf, he's like, it might be time to take it serious. And I think it was at that moment I had a video that went viral. I had kind of an epiphany with the girl that I was talking to at the time. I had somebody I respected really well that was going to make a connection for me to do another video. And then the engineer that I worked with on that record, who's worked with, Raekwon, legends in hip-hop, was like, yeah, you know what, turn it up, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so that was kind of the defining moment there where I really transitioned from like just Jordan Burgett being the regular guy to like me really wanting to be the artist. So that's kind of the background at least on that,
Sure. And that was 2016, you said that
2016 to 2017.
In 2017. So couple years ago.
Yeah.
All right. And man, there's so much to unpack there that I would love to get into. I don't know if Cooper told you, but I'm a psychiatrist, so I definitely want to double back into when you were younger and some of that. But I don't know that that's the place to go right now. I mean, so then
I don't mind.
Well, I mean, I want to, but I think we're on a good track right now. So tell me, so that was a couple years ago, and then you kind of got that first taste of like. You started to get some popularity going. What could it be like? I mean, your buddy off camera that the rest of people aren't, can't see, was teasing you about the thing when you said about Rihanna. But I've heard a lot of people that make it talk about how do you know that someone's really your friend or someone's really into you, or are they trying to ride your coattails or hang out with you when people have these big entourages and so forth. So, I mean, you kind of got that first taste. So what have you done? What have you been doing since then?
I think, of course, making music, right? And really trying to figure out how to break into the industry and get my name to be a household name. But I think life or the universe or God or whatever you want to call it, the higher power has definitely been putting me through a lot of situations where I've had to learn how to micromanage my personal life while continuing to, like, produce music. Right. And I had a situation... that, and this would be a little bit of backtracking, but I dated a girl, Pink Palace Nights. I don't know if you heard that. So that's my project before 23. I hadn't put out a project for 6 days short of a year since Pink Palace, and then 23 dropped. And in that time, I was just like figuring out everything. You know what I mean? I had a lot of the answers come to me as like a kid that started to transition me into the man that I'm becoming. You know what I mean? And so that was just kind of like the journey there. I think a lot, has been done with the music, but I don't know if a lot of people talk about how scary it is before you get there? You know what I mean? Do you know you're ready? You know what I mean? Do you know that you're going to be able to discern who's going to be, good for you or not? Are you going to be able to trust your team that's around you, your management, all that? And Yoder, my buddy that is off screen, we have a lot of conversations about that, about just like keeping the right people around you, because I have a thing where I run towards stuff that's not that great for me. I don't know why. Okay. And I think that's just like me trying to have like I have compassion for a lot of people. I'm a very loving person. Okay. So I see like train wrecks, and then I want to like fix them, or feel like I'm obligated to like help them get better. And he's like, ultimately, dude, like you have to stay on point at all times. You have to be focused on your music, because in the end, with time being finite, like, it could be a couple hours or a song or an interaction or a connection or a handshake or whatever that defines my future. And if I'm worried about some of the things going on in my personal life and I'm not able to manage those, then I'll never be able to be really successful as an artist. We might have something that breaks out, but the longevity and the consistency, I think definitely, they do come about with the music and the marketing and all that, but the artist has to be sane in that time too, you know what I mean? Or at least enough to keep continuing to create content and, not have a Britney moment, shave their hair off, or, you know what I mean? Right. And with you being a psychiatrist, like that's why it intrigued me, because I think I remember Cooper telling me that before this. I'm an extremely dark person. Okay. Like I live in a very, 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 very dark place. And I have for as long as I can remember. So,
do you think that informs your music and your lyrics and kind of your process?
Yeah, I think, and that's the thing is that with 23, I really, 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 really wanted to throw people for a curveball. So I was inspired by the movie Split, where Kevin Wendell Crumb, the main character, takes on 23, or he has 23 personalities, basically. Okay. Then it's revealed at the end, the 24th is the beast, the freak of nature, the superhuman. And I wanted to show people, just because of how emotional I am as a person, sometimes I feel like multiple different people. Not in a way where, like, I know... Like, they literally had their own personalities, like, they would dress differently and things like that. No, I just have extreme emotions. Like, if I feel something, like, when I'm angry, I feel like an animal. When I'm loving, I feel like my love can heal people, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. When I'm sad, it's like an abyss, you know what I mean? So, I think my music definitely does translate that. I don't feel like I have yet to even scratch really the surface of how dark it gets, but in my next project that will be all kind of revealed, because 23 at the end I like Jordan Burgett comes out, so to mirror the thing that inspired me and Split, when the beast comes out, it's at the end of the movie, and it's terrifying for all the viewers, for the characters that are in it, even for, I think, Kevin himself, the host body. I don't think he enjoys knowing that there's something that's almost like a demon in him. And I feel like through a lot of my interactions and moving around throughout life, a lot of who Jordan Burgett is contained. I have to, like, and I don't have to, and I'm seeing that now, but throughout my life I used to feel like I had to, like, confine, like, joy sometimes, or certain things, just because society will make you feel a certain way about certain stuff. I think it's a cultural thing too, me being biracial. There's a lot of things dealing, half my family's white, so I'm literally the black sheep on one side of the family, and half my family's black, but they've always that's my identity, you know what I mean? Sure. So, like, I definitely wanted to take these emotions, these vibes, these thoughts, and make them into people, you know what I mean? So it's like when you're listening to Kevin, the intro, and Lil Perk is just playful, cocky, and he's jumping around. You can see in the video, like, there are times like if I'm out and about or, you know, I feel like I'm dressed well, like I feel some things that Little Perk says, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I can talk shit to anybody, you know what I'm saying? But going back with Jordan Burgett, when he's revealed in the Kevin music video, you get a quick little look at him or me completely chained up. So he's chained up around his neck, around the arms, and just has boxers on. Or I don't know if you see it in the video. It might look like I'm naked, which I kind of wanted that to be the...
It looks like you're naked.
You're right.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
So, and I was actually naked outside in one of my other videos, so I don't know what's with me and nudity, but... no, it's the rawest form, you know what I mean? Like, imagine being on a stage in front of 1,000 people being naked, you know what I mean? You're completely vulnerable. They see everything, you know what I'm saying? So, that's kind of what I wanted to offer up.
Yeah.
And at the end, Jordan Burgett, when he comes out, there's the sinister laugh, and then, the counselor says, I want to speak to Jordan. There's a sinister laugh. The voices all chant about what's going to happen now that he's out. And then Jordan Burgett tells the story of the upbringing, and I think it's 32 bars. So it's very short. It's not all of my entire life, you know what I mean? But it talks about me coming up. My mom was 16 when she had me. My dad was a trap lord in Memphis. And him abandoning me as a child as he figured out his process as a man. And me coming up with my mother, and then me kind of trying to figure out if the suicidal thoughts were a deeper thing in me ending the generational curses with myself, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Severing the bloodline, you know? And the funny thing is, we do the entire verse all in one take, so all the fluctuations in the voice and the low demon rumble, that is just from me bringing it up. So I remember when we were in the session, 16, my engineer had never heard me do that before. I don't think anybody had heard me do it before. I think Yoder was there too. Nobody heard me like let that out, but it was a voice I found throughout my like writing process. I'll drive around and rap, and I did it one time, and I was like, I got goosebumps myself because I was like, God, this feels like what I feel a lot of times. You know what I mean? And
do you know what specifically he's referencing?
He's talking about the video, at least the video of Kevin.
Do you
Yeah.
know, like what part of the song he's talking about?
I'll be honest. I watched it once.
Yeah.
I mean, but
So I tried to, he's not a big rap connoisseur.
100%. Yeah, no.
So
yeah, I get it.
a lot of this stuff, like talking about doing different voices and stuff, he might not have. I don't know if he.
Well, what I was thinking, but I definitely don't want to interrupt you when you're going on your flow, because is that this is super deep and I love it, and I think there's a lot of art that the artist knows the subtext of, that the connoisseur might not ever get, but probably doesn't get the first time through. And I mean, just to think of examples of literature or painting or any kind of music, like it's really interesting when you see an artist in an interview set up like this that you like, and they're explaining what it means, and you think, shit, I've heard that song 1,000 times. I never thought of that before.
100%.
So I mean, I hope you explode and you're huge and everything for a variety of reasons. But I was actually imagining as you were saying that this will be on YouTube hopefully forever. There may be people in the future looking back going, oh, so that's what he meant.
I hope so.
Because to you it's super clear. And last night when I was looking at one of your YouTube channels, there's Kevin, but then you've got a handful of other songs that have names on them. And so I think as you're talking about that 23 thing, I think that so the different masks that we wear, the different people that we are, 100%. So to speak.
Yeah, so that's the thing is that when you're listening to 23, I take on basically 18 voices in 5 tracks. 5 of the tracks are named after personalities you don't meet, and then Jordan Burgett is the 24th that comes out. So he's in Kevin for 4 bars, and then at the end of Nene, the final track, then comes out fully. Okay. It's like the beast reveal, and I did that to mirror Split in some ways because they talk about the beast in the beginning. So there's that allure of this, mystical demon creature that can survive gunshot wounds, crawl up walls, consumes humans, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so that was to kind of show like, okay, this is going to come out later, you know what I mean? But that's why the Kevin video was kind of so essential, because I don't think people would have gotten it fully if I didn't show it to them visually.
Sure.
And if I had a budget, I would do more videos. But you just, that's the one thing about being an up-and-coming artist. You're not, everybody around me is willing to work, but they all have to eat too, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, that all that stuff kind of, in going full circle, I know you asked about, like, what I had been doing in the last couple of years. I think this journey of knowing that I needed to put this dark stuff out in the music came after my relationship when I was 19. My ex-girlfriend, who I talk about in the album Pink Palace. So Pink Palace Nights is 12 tracks about me retelling the 6 months that I was with a girl who lived in the Pink Palace in Iowa City. And so it starts in Eden, the club Eden, but I also have that mirror, like the Garden of Eden. So I have references of like the snake, the apple, Eve, Adam, the rib, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the next track, Parking Lot Pimpin', I meet her out in the Ped Mall area after bar close, and when I see her, have a vision of her spoon feeding our child. I take her on a date on Wednesday, night at Giovanni's the next Wednesday, and then the rest of the album talks about like the rest of the relationship, and at the climax and the chase, I find her leaving the apartment with her ex-boyfriend, the guy she told me never worry about. So these are all real events, right? Yeah. And at 19, especially like I said, like when I was a lot younger, or just in general, I feel like I'm a pretty pure-hearted person, or I had been.
How old are you?
23.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you say 19 was like, you made it sound like it was a long time ago.
Yeah,
I didn't figure you were much older than that. But anyway,
yeah.
Go. You're an old man like me. You'll see it. Anyway, go ahead.
No,
go
I
ahead.
know. In time, like, I mean, even saying that now, it's weird that 4 years has passed, you know? But yeah, that was kind of where the journey started. And Pink Palace Nights has some brighter like vibes to it, but in the end, a Pink Palace, the last track, Terra, that's where I play with the idea, and I talk about the upbringing too, and my childhood, because I mean that's something I really want to get into later in my music process.
Yeah.
But just how much it affected me, and after I have a conversation with the devil, an equivalent exchange, there's like an exchange basically. It says he knows everything, you know. A lot of people don't like, and I wanted to leave this up to interpretation. So it's either an actual conversation with Lucifer himself, or a conversation with the dark parts in myself that I had repressed for so long. And now that they had an opportunity after a traumatizing experience where I got to see anger on levels I had never experienced, and sadness I had never experienced. In Terra, the consciousnesses kind of merge. So towards the end of the verses, where I'm saying flows, a low voice will fade in, and then at the end of the verse, my actual voice is faded out, and the low voice is completely speaking. So it's like, this is who Jordan is now.
Sure.
So, and then at the end of Terra, you hear footsteps walking. And I don't think anybody would know this if I didn't say it, but those footsteps are me walking into the counseling session that is 23.
Okay.
So that's when the counselor meets all 23 personalities, and all that. So within these last couple years, I've been conceptualizing, getting things together, and then putting music out. So that's been the process, basically.
So for anybody listening, we're going to link all the videos that he's referencing in the description box down below if you're listening on YouTube. And so that way, because all of what you said is great and super deep, but I without the music in front of us and the video in front of us, it's a little bit difficult. So I would encourage listeners to, sort of go back and hear that again, and then maybe in a different window open that up and you can hear it. And I think it's great, like, because to me, and like Cooper said a minute ago, I'm not the largest consumer of hip hop, but there's no genre of music that I would say I don't like. Mm-hmm. And as a kid, there was a lot of pressure to like, oh, don't like country or don't like rap or whatever. But like, I liked all of it. But there's not like, I don't know a ton about it. But I feel like when I think about hip hop, and as I was getting ready for this conversation, and kind of thinking about like what was my introduction to, because I actually got into a conversation on a bus one time, believe it or not. I was going to see my girlfriend at the time who lived in Indiana, and I was taking a bus to Chicago, and there were a bunch of MCs going for a battle. And I didn't know what a battle was, but there were these dudes, black and white and like Hispanic, were in the aisle with like these like beatbox tracks on cassette, and they weren't being mean to each other. You know how like a lot of times they're making fun of each other. And I'm actually told there was a movie I saw on YouTube not long ago that Eminem produced about battling, and it was so different from like 8 Mile, where it was so different. But anyway, and when they kind of started they were sort of practicing their lyrics, and they were even using verbs I'd never heard before. This is going to show you, I'm making fun of myself now, like what a white guy from Iowa I am. They're talking about spitting this and cutting that, and I'm like, okay, like I figured out eventually what they meant. But I asked one of them, so what's the difference between rap and hip hop? And after they got done making fun of me like 2 minutes later, I still realized that I'd never really gotten a great explanation. So I might have you answer that later. Yeah. But when I think about the genre, I feel like there's a divide that and Chris Rock made fun of this once, where you get the hip hop and the rap that's really deep, where people are coming out of the hood, or they have these experiences like you did, or they're using it therapeutically, and it becomes this very deep, like this deep part of the artist that comes out, and that's the kind of music that I think is really great for me, and I like to listen to. And then the rest of it is like, I'm sitting in a Bugatti, or look at all these bitches around me, and sipping on gin and juice. I mean, it becomes like that. There's two sort of big parts in there, and I think in a way, to tie it back to what we talked about earlier, the bigger that you get, it becomes harder to remember those roots. And I've heard musicians and comedians and different people talk about that, when you come out of a situation like that, how do you stay true to your voice and who you were when you started? I heard a guy once say, I can't remember who it is now, you have your whole life to make your first album, but you've got like a year to make your second one. And how do you, everyone's expecting it to be as good as this upbringing you had, and it was up until you were 20 or whatever, and then how do you sort of keep that going?
So Jay-Z was quoted saying that too. Yep, he talks about how his first project was probably the best one because he had his entire life to make it, and everything else was, I mean, I don't think you make albums to sum up to what you did before, but it's definitely going to be a transition. Yeah, it
just seems to me that like the stuff you're talking about is much more on that kind of, on that deeper end. So do you am I right, like do you see that divide as well in the music, or am I just like, again, middle-aged white guy in Iowa who's kind of like way off base?
Well, yeah, I think the thing is, what's kind of happening now in hip-hop, at least is what I've observed, you're having a lot of fusion, or like the line is being blurred. Before it was very definitive. Like you had lyricists who were using crazy vocabulary, spitting real stories, painting like beautiful pictures, right? And then you had on the other end people who made like radio music and catchy stuff and stuff about, women, drugs, the nice clothes, the nice cars, more materialistic stuff. And the production was like upbeat, everybody could vibe with it. But I don't know, you see like Kendrick Lamar, I think did it in Damn, and then J. Cole did it in KOD. They are taking like a lot of the new like cadences, styles, flows, beat production, all that stuff, and then putting like the real hip hop onto it, and kind of showing that like just because you like catchy beats doesn't mean that you can't like say something dope on it. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what I wanted to do on 23. I really wanted to make stuff that was like catchy just to see if I could do it, but in the end you have like the deep concept, you know what I mean, or the underlying storyline that comes out and is fully out there at the end. So I think I don't really know, I can't say like where the climate is going in hip hop, but I have noticed a lot of fusion, or people who they might have a record that's super deep talking about like, you know, trauma from their childhood, and the next record might be about them, you know, coming up or being in the club, you know. And I definitely feel like it would be a hard time for anybody coming from, I mean, imagine this, and people don't think about this enough, even with like athletes. This person may be from an inner city. This person may be from like the worst part of the country in the world. This person might have seen family members killed.
Right.
They may have had to sell drugs, do something, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I don't really fault anybody for their evolution or them not wanting to be anything like or be reminded about anything like that.
Sure.
In the black community, it's really tough. Like, we don't talk about mental health enough. So it's like, I know like grown men who haven't cried since like their great grandma died and like, you know, 10, 15 years ago, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so a lot of times there are things that are done to try to like cope with that. And so I think like sometimes like people who are broke, when they get money, it makes sense that they buy a lot of things, or they're very materialistic because they've never had anything.
Right.
Or like Big Pun, one of the greatest MCs of all time. I watched a documentary about him, and he came up in like a very impoverished home, and they said when he used to get like angry, he would eat, and when he got famous, like food was always an access, you know, and he may have been dealing with some of the things that he saw in his childhood. Big Pun died from his health issues.
Mm-hmm.
He was over 700 pounds at one point, I believe. So it's like,
So Big Pun's an apropos name then. I mean, he's
oh
a big
yeah,
dude.
oh yeah. Yeah, no, he was in one of the coldest. Like lyrically, he was insane. A big influence like on like some of my more techie flows. When I listen to him, I like try to learn a lot. But yeah, no, I mean, people evolve, and that we can't like fault people. Like, you know, Kendrick Lamar is somebody I've been listening to since like 8th grade. Same thing as J. Cole. And their evolutions actually are pretty similar. They're still very humble guys. They don't wear a lot of like, they don't have chains. They don't do a lot of like the crazy flamboyant cars. They're very about their communities and like just the community in general.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't put it past them coming from where they come from to, you know, want to live beyond anybody's normal means, you know? So yeah.
Well, and if your goal is to be real, then this, again, like you said, this makes sense for. This has been shown across all genres of art,
right?
Whether it's music or dance or painting, you know, you produce what you know,
right.
Because if you try to produce something you don't know, it's fiction,
mm-hmm.
and even great fiction writers put parts of themselves in there. Otherwise, you're just making shit up.
Right.
And sometimes you can bullshit people for a while
mm-hmm.
and make shit up, you know, that's sort of whatever. But if I tried to tell your story as you, people would see right through it.
Right.
It's obviously bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Just like if you tried to tell my story, but it doesn't mean that yours or mine is better or worse or less worthy of people's attention.
Right.
But I mean, so then it makes sense that when you're working out your demons, but you know, then it's this raw, straight out of Compton. You know, it's rugged, real from the street.
Right.
And then as you, like you say, as you get more things, you know, how can you not be affected by it? We were making fun of Chris Brown earlier. I saw a documentary on Netflix about Chris Brown, and I really enjoyed it, I have to say, because Chris Brown has been so demonized.
Yeah.
And I will say, for anybody listening who currently is clicking away and hitting thumbs down on this video, that, you know, a lot of the things that Chris Brown did, I don't agree with. But one of the things he said in this documentary was, you have to imagine, I was 15 years old. I went from nothing to a multimillionaire.
Exactly.
Everywhere I went, nobody told me no.
Right.
I could get into any club in the world.
Mm-hmm.
People paid for everything. If I even mentioned I thought Ferraris were cool, they'd open the dealership in the middle of the night for me, and I could drive whatever. So how can you not? It's like a child actor. You know, who
Justin Bieber.
Right. It was exactly right. So how can you possibly get a sense of normal when you had a video that got 14,000 views in a day and 65,000 views in a month or whatever it was you said. I'm not putting that down. That's awesome. Imagine if that would have made you $100 million,
Right.
and you would have gone from, and you're obviously a really nice guy, but all of a sudden you're the hottest thing literally in the world because of the way we're all connected.
Right.
That would, even the most sane person of 20 or however old you were, that it's bound to spin your head. How could it not?
100%. Yeah, no, and that's the thing. I think that why I'm actually grateful for the process taking longer than what I originally planned for. I would have not been okay at that time. I was still coping with a lot of stuff. And I like the point that you brought up, because I'm a huge fan of Chris Brown's music, his art. I mean, he's one of the most talented human beings on the planet, in my opinion. He can act, he can rap, he can sing, he can dance, he does everything live. But I had a hard time with that too, because a lot of the women in my family have dealt with domestic violence.
Yeah.
One of my aunts, her face was broken because her husband had beaten her so bad. So, it's very, very hard sometimes too to remove the art from the artist. But I think we have to start remembering that these people are human too.
Right.
Because the same people who are pointing fingers have never dealt with this, and a lot of them have done things that really aren't that far off from what these celebrities are doing. And I just don't believe in people being held to these crazy standards. They're like, well, you have this money, it's your responsibility. No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. Or like Conor McGregor, another scenario where you have a guy who, goes from being a little guy in Scotland trying to make it big and then becomes the greatest fighter in the world at one point, If you have already certain tendencies before you're big, and Kendrick Lamar said this one time, I think it was his Rick Rubin interview. He's like, I view, basically, once you become famous or once you get money, you are who you are magnified times 10. So it's like there may even be some things that seemed like they were right under the surface, and then right when you get exposed to everything, they come out and they're magnified.
Right.
So I try not to fault people. I do think we do have to start having, and I think our culture is shifting that way. People are being accountable for the things that they do. But cancel culture is really big right now, and it's tough because you have like scenarios where people are 14 when they tweet something, and then they get condemned for it when they're 20 or 30 or whatever, you know what I mean? And it's like, we can't deny the fact that people evolve, you know what I mean? I'm a big believer in, like, if somebody's the way they are at 25, that's probably how they're going to be forever, unless there's like a conscious choice to change or trauma. But I don't know. We've got to start giving a little bit of leeway and also being supportive of these people. Like, I understand you can ruin your reputation, a good reputation, in 5 seconds, but at the same time, I do questionable shit all the time.
Everybody does.
Everybody does.
Yep.
Exactly. So it's like, I don't know, the cancel culture stuff has got to be a little bit more lenient, I think. Like, when it comes to scenarios like sexual assault or rape, like stuff like that, like, throw them away. I'm not here for any of that, but we have to start, being a little bit more forgiving of people when they make certain mistakes, or understanding who they are as individuals and weighing them on that scale instead of condemning them. Like, like if it's like my uncle beating up my auntie or something like that, I understand you come from a certain place, but I'm going to view it a little bit differently, and I'm going to take it a little bit more, or a lot more harsh than if it was, a celebrity. And I try to just view everybody as they are and give them their own scale instead of putting everybody on the same one,
Yeah, you make some really good points. You actually took the words right out of my head because we're obviously we're on the same brain. When you was talking about it, I was thinking I was going to ask you what you thought about cancel culture, because it bothers me, and I agree with you. There are levels, and we don't have royalty in America. So our royalty have become the celebrities,
Right.
and we expect them. And the English royalty have their own share of problems, But it's everybody breaks up with somebody. Everybody says stupid shit. Everybody, goes out to the supermarket dressed like shit. The difference is that if I, Adam Woods, do that, nobody cares. Even if I look terrible, no paparazzi are following me. Right. Nobody really gives a shit. But if you're Justin Timberlake and you come out of the gym and your hair is messed up because you've been sweating, you got 1,000 pictures of you that people are selling,
right.
and and then it's so tough. And I've obviously never been famous, and I probably never will be. But when you hear the paparazzi and they're like, he's just walking down the street and like Justin, he goes,
like,
fuck you,
dude, right? Exactly.
And then the headline with the picture is Justin Timberlake says fuck you. He doesn't like his fans. I can't imagine. I don't know if you saw when Jennifer Garner testified before Congress about people following her and her kids and how like she can't do anything. Now, at some level, it is true you chose to be an actor or whatever else, but having now completely stated that I agree with you about the cancel culture thing, let me play some devil's advocate for you, because so you said 25, 26, 27, our frontal lobe develops. I'm going to throw in my mental health and medical training in there. So it's not that you can't change, but what about this? So you're mixed race. You said black and white. So somebody does blackface when they're in high school, or somebody is dropping the N-word all over social media. I mean, do you forgive them for that, or is that too far?
That's a tough one, because like I said, it's all, you can weigh it all on different scales. Like, okay, so historically we know that the N-word is not a friendly word, right? If you hear somebody drop the hard ER out in public, every head turns, you know what I mean? Everybody hears it. It's almost cringy, you know what I mean? But at the same time, like, sometimes it's kids, you know what I mean? Sometimes you have 15-year-olds who are doing that. I saw one scenario, somebody was like, it was like Halloween costume, blackface or something like that. It's a tough scenario, because I mean, it's not right either way. There's no right way to go about it. That's ignorant, you know what I mean? Yeah. But at the same time, if that's all you know as a child, that's the household that you come up in, that's your environment, I don't really expect much more from you. Yeah. If you're past the point where I can have a conversation with you, or you don't receive anything from the public anymore, then, and either way, sometimes cancel culture is good because it does make people consider certain things, You might have someone who was a business professional, they're still a repressed racist in certain ways, and then somebody in the business finds out that when they were younger, they did blackface, or they were dropping the N-word all over social media. If you still are dealing with these demons, maybe it's good that you do get called out on that, so then you know why it's wrong. And it's not just coming from one person that you talk to, but the entire culture or masses are saying, you got to fucking cut it,
Right, and I think called out is important.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer in free speech, and I'm left-leaning, no question. When it comes to free speech, I think that, and this is why I brought it up, why I did the devil's advocate about the racism thing, because I think what happens is the left is very quick to judge the right, but when something happens on the left, it's like, oh, well, of course that's okay, because the person is a racist. When the Charlie Hebdo people publish the cartoons with Muhammad and a bunch of them get killed, you get the people on the crazy left going, well, they deserve to die because they were making fun of the prophet. That's fucking crazy. It is. Because if you drew a cartoon of Jesus butt fucking a pig, you're not going to get murdered by Pat Robertson and his crew. You might get shouted down, but that to me is where free speech comes in. And this was not a popular debate that I got into on Facebook recently, but I'll give you an example. And if I get haters, I don't care, because this is what I think. This, to me, is where the free market comes into play. So recently, the city of New York passed a rule that said if you call somebody an illegal alien, you can get fined $250,000.
What the fuck?
Now, Now, here's my problem. That's bullshit, and that is an affront to freedom of speech. Because I think you have a right to be an idiot. Now, the president is an idiot, and he tweets dumb shit all the time. And I think he has every right to do that. Now, the other side of that is we have every right, as then people with free speech, to not vote for him, to not frequent his businesses. Yeah. That's the other side of free speech. So if you get some idiot saying, so Greta, I can't ever pronounce it, Greta Thunberg, whatever, was in Iowa City. Some fucking moron from some science teacher from Waterloo High School puts on social media, I don't have my sniper rifle.
Whoa.
That guy is a fucking idiot. Now, he got suspended and he's probably going to get fired.
Right.
But that's the free market. Should it be illegal to say words? I don't think so. But let's say this. So if a restaurant says, we're not going to serve gay people, I think they have the right to do that. But I'm not going to go to that shitty restaurant.
Right.
And the real example, and I say this loud and proud, I will never eat at Chick-fil-A because Chick-fil-A is openly hostile to LGBTQ people. And and coming from I have a theater background. I was a professional actor before I was a doctor.
Yeah.
And so I will not eat there. Cracker Barrel, fuck them. I'm not going to eat there. Now, my wife will say to me, oh, but Chick-fil-A, the stuff is so good. And I say to her, I don't care if they have the cure for cancer. Right. They're not going to get $1 of my money because of their policies. But that's the freedom of speech thing. So, I think especially with social media being what it is today, your generation, much more so than mine, there's going to have to be accountability. This is where I began my little rant. So definitely accountability. Somebody says something, does something stupid, we call them out. Somebody said something stupid in the past, we call them out. But I think there are some things I agree with you. Murder, rape, child anything, endangerment, pornography, whatever.
You're done.
Yeah, that's it.
Right.
There are some things that are not forgivable. But if it's gonna be, and I've been saying this forever, so if it's gonna be that you can't ever do or say anything stupid, the next couple generations are gonna have a hard time picking senators and congressmen and the president because it's all on camera now. Right. You can't get drunk at a bar and say stupid shit without 9 people recording you. We heard rumors about George W. Bush that he was doing cocaine. We heard rumors about Bill Clinton that he was smoking pot and not inhaling. Now, any politician from 5 years ago or 10 years ago forward, that shit's on video.
Right.
So there's gonna have to be a conversation of is there room for forgiveness? And if the answer is no, I don't know where we go from there.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I definitely agree with a lot of what you just said. I don't know. I mean, I would much rather call me a racial slur. I want to know you're racist, you know what I mean? Or tell me you don't align, so then we don't have to ever have any interactions with each other again. That's why, when you're talking about the president, I enjoy seeing some of the outbursts because then it's okay, well, now everybody can take this and digest it.
Yeah.
What are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
So I definitely don't feel like we need to start. And that's the thing is too, you're talking about with politicians. I think the worst people that I've had interactions with are the ones who say and do things that are opposing how they actually feel. I don't like snakes. I would much rather have you just say, hey, I don't like you, Jordan. Fuck you. Cool, man. Fuck you. I don't like you either. Right. That's awesome. But instead of you being around, you checking me out, watching how I do things, see where I sleep, the people I'm around, knowing that kind of stuff, having that information, and then figuring out how to actually hurt me, you know what I mean?
Right.
That's a lot scarier.
Or worse than that, try to get something from you.
Yeah, exactly.
So in this hypothetical situation that we're talking about, politician X doesn't like anybody who's not white.
Right.
But politician X kisses the appropriate asses to try to get in power. And then out comes the agenda that was underlying, where it was, no, I love brown people, but then we're going to pass a bunch of stupid shit. Right. Or pick your favorite. I chose race just because we were talking about it, and Andre and I talked about it.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, and I'm with you. But that's what I'm talking about. That's why the limitation of free speech, I think is so bad because it's going to drive a lot of people underground, and it's going to seem nice on the surface. Like, oh, racism is down, sexism is down because no one's talking about it. Yeah. But then if it's underlying, it's a cliche, but actions speak louder than words.
100%. That's why I like this presidency. I mean, I don't like it for everything that's going on right now, but the heat and the climate and how angry people are, it's showing everything. It's like all the ugly shit just came out all at once. You know what I mean? The shit finally hit the fan, and now we're just seeing the fucking room. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I and I'm not huge into politics. I try to stay away from the conversations because I don't know. Sometimes it just it's a slippery fucking slope. And a lot of times too, like back in the day, I can't remember. I think I was watching maybe a Joe Rogan podcast or something. Somebody was talking, and they were talking about how, back in the day, you could have different political views than your neighbor, and you guys were still cool. Yeah. Now, people are so far right or so far left that they are mortal enemies. And that's the one thing about the left, too, is, like, of course, I'm biracial. I identify, I say I'm black most of the time, just, you know what I mean? I'm into rap music. I like drugs. I drink a lot, you know what I mean? Like I'm definitely leaning more towards the free, not conservative stuff. But there are some left elitist people that I know that it's weird. They're so moral that it's almost like they're not moral. Like you say or do one thing, and they're like, "Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. You're a piece of shit," and It's like. Whoa, dude!
They're so moral they start to turn into the morality.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Well,
exactly.
This is the bumper sticker. Don't be so open-minded that your brains fall out. I mean, it's and so one of the reasons I started this show, is because I as well. I'm a fan of the Joe Rogan podcast of MF CEO. Great conversations with people on all sides, and once we get a bigger following, I hope to have people that are more conservative. We had, since you seem to know everybody that Cooper knows, guest number 2 was Keegan Whitbeck, professional MMA fighter, Cooper's buddy, and he's the most right-leaning person we've had here, and I love the conversation because smart. It's what you're saying. Smart, intelligent adults should be able to disagree. Because I heard the one you're talking about, where like the guy across the fence from you could have different opinions. But who cares? Because as long as we're respectful, we should have conversations 100%. Where we disagree. Right. But this wall of fear goes up of we can't talk about religion, we can't talk about race, we can't talk about politics, and it breeds.
How are things going to improve?
Well, it breeds fear.
Right.
And I don't want to repeat the entire story because if people are listening and they heard the one with Andre, but when I was in the military, I had a couple of good friends that were black, and we had these amazing conversations where we just agreed, let's be adults and let's ask questions of each other, and we're not going to hold it against anybody. And so but that's why I like doing this. That's why I like having people of all ages, of all races, of all leanings to say, what's your take on it? Because sometimes somebody who you disagree with challenges a position that you have with thoughtful, rational, intelligent logic, and you go, I never thought of it that way.
Right.
It might not change what I think, but at least I know, I kind of know where you're coming from. I can hear what you say versus what you just said, which is you don't agree with me? Well, fuck you then. I'm not even going to talk to you. That's where the tribalism comes into play. We just divide further, and it's tough, man.
Well,
it's bad.
If you know so good, then why aren't you educating people? Why are you condemning everyone? You know what I mean?
Well, and if you're so solid in your position, then why can't I challenge you on it?
100%.
Because it means you're not solid in it.
Right.
If you can't back it up, whatever it is, then you're not that solid in it, and that's just a fact. Right. And people that get all defensive is just not the case. And I want to bring it back to music with that, which is I think that I think hip hop and rap have a stigma around them in not everybody obviously, but in white culture that that's sort of like their music, and there was a sense of that when I was growing up, And I mentioned my friends in the military. My friends in the military used to laugh at me and say, as a white guy, are you required to like Eminem? And I had to say to them, Eminem was kind of my first foray into hip hop or rap or whatever you want to call Eminem, because I'd never really paid that close of attention. Like I'd heard songs, obviously, you hear on the radio, you see it on movies, whatever else. But definitely when 8 Mile came out and I saw 8 Mile, and then I started listening to some of his music. Back to what we were talking about, there's that depth of the lyric, and you can sort of hear him, kind of come out in that, and it opened this whole new world to me of again, I don't have to stay in my lane, so to speak. Like I can. What I knew as a child, what I told you earlier in the conversation, which is I like all genres. Mm-hmm. Why did I shut myself off? And it became this great exploration of, let's sort of look at the history of this music and how it's evolved throughout the years from, if I want to be really from Sugar Hill Gang,
yeah.
I mean, all the way up until kind of the modern stuff, and to the point where there were a number of people that I thought of as actors mm-hmm. that I didn't even know were rappers.
Yeah.
And that's cool.
Yeah. No doubt. I want to say thank you for your service too. So I didn't know you were in the military. But yeah, I don't know. I think that the thing is too, we have to realize is hip hop is still very young. You know what I mean? It's an art form that really, really, really started kind of coming together. Less than 40 years ago. You know what I mean? Or about 40 years ago. So, it's just like any other form of art. It's going to evolve. It's going to change. It's going to, get exposed to different people. And when more of the world gets it, then there's going to be different ways that it can be taken. And Eminem is probably in my top 5 or top 3 in regards to like just straight lyricism. One of the greatest of all time. And that's somebody that I definitely like to study, just how he does it, what I mean? But yeah, I think, and that's the big thing too, is that the more division that we have because people are afraid to say things, the less that we're going to be able to have these conversations, just like how your buddies in the military, were like, was this your first exposure? Basically, like, if you're never exposed to those people and there's that fear and that separation there, then there are going to be things that you never learn about, someone else's culture. My buddy Kendon, he's one of my best friends. He had never experienced like racism. He's a white guy, never experienced it or never got to see it in person. So he really didn't have like a understanding of how it was. And we were skating out at Prairie High School. We just had our longboards out there one night, and God, this had to be like 4 years ago. We were just riding around, and this car came up, and I was like, "Dude, we should get out of here." I'm like, "I got no bad vibe."
I called him an idiot.
No, it's a different time. That was in the hotel at Shokwire. He like stomped some kid out. He was like a friend of ours. They got into a fight, and
anyway, sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. No, but we were skating out there, and a car came around, and I was like, "Man, I don't know. These guys are like kind of looking at us." And he's like, "Oh, dude, it'll be fine." The car like left for a little bit and came back, and when they drove by, they got really super close to us and started throwing like bags of chips and garbage at me. And that was his first kind of experience in it, and he was very caught off guard by my reaction, but I was just like, "Yeah, dude, we should just leave," you know what I mean? And he didn't realize that like once you experience just so much racism, I mean, you can fire back, which I normally always meet resistance with resistance, but you also have to sometimes pick and choose your battles, and what does it do in that scenario if I fight them, or we get into it, or I retaliate in some way, shape, or form? I'm a gun owner, you know what I mean? So it's like, what happens if they throw stuff at me, or they make me feel like I'm in danger and I shoot back, you know what I mean? In the end, it's not really going to help if we don't have these conversations. So I would love to sit down and talk to somebody who's racist, or they feel like they're elite because of their skin color or their heritage or whatever, just to kind of pick their brain. I don't know where that thought comes from. I think it's very ignorant. But if we can't have conversations, I'm not the type of person who's opposed to it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I would love to be the light or the beacon of light that helps them kind of think about something differently.
It's the only way. It's the only way because, in my experience, once you start talking to people, you realize that you have 96% of things in common, and we focus on that. So whenever I meet someone that hates gay people, I can tell you they've not really talked to gay people.
Right.
They'll always say they don't know any, and I always say, you know a bunch. They just, because you're a bigot, they haven't told you that. But it's the same thing. So, I grew up in Iowa, and I've been fortunate enough to be all over the world with my with my music when I was younger. But when I was in the service, and all of a sudden I had coworkers and these friends that were a variety of races. You start talking to people, and what we have in common is so much more. Then you sort of go, oh yeah, we're exactly the same way, And yes, there's a difference. People that go, oh no, it's just white people that do that. There's no difference, not at all, not for a second. Yeah, there is. And to deny that there is a difference in culture is stupid.
Right.
But where racism comes in is, therefore I'm better than you.
Right.
That's racism, not we're different. And I was saying to one of our previous guests that when you're in the military, they want you to demonize the enemy. They're less than human because then that way it makes them easier to kill.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, pick your favorite country that we think hates us. Like, let's say Iran. 99% of them, what they want to do is go to work, feed their kids, have a good meal, and go to bed. I mean, really, their goals for their families are exactly what my goal is for my family. Yeah. And if we can realize, in the futuristic movies where humans have decided to all get along because there's alien races, that's what's had to happen. They've realized that the differences are so slim compared to the things in
Fox
common.
News, they had, they confirmed that UFOs were real. There's a video, you can look it up on YouTube. And I was talking to my buddy Doc, and I was like, they're telling us that UFOs are real now. I'm like, we're gonna get hit with some big ass news, like some Men in Black shit in 6 months or a year. Yeah, no, it's odd though. I don't know where the hubris comes from. I think maybe it's because we evolve. I mean, I believe in a higher power, but I also am a big believer in evolution. And it looks like humans just try to conquer anything that they feel is inferior to them. So it may take something that is stronger than us or a lot different than us for us to kind of come together and be like, yeah, we are the same. And talking about you being in the military, and countries in the Middle East, or they demonize people who are Muslim a lot. Mm-hmm. I have a lot of friends who are Muslim. I have a Quran at my apartment that I read semi-frequently, and my girlfriend is actually from Libya.
Oh, cool.
So she's not her parents are more strict Muslim, but since she's been there, she's been telling me a lot, sending me videos. These people are scared of what's going on there too. You know what I mean? There's trucks with gun turrets in the back, or gunfire, and kids are out there finding gun shells and playing with them, and bombs going off. And it's these people are not animals. They're terrified as much as we would be about it. You know what I mean?
They're humans.
Right, exactly. And
just
so
people.
I just don't get or if you hear about some of the things that happened to Africans when they were coming here, and when just slavery, or even in going through up until the civil rights movements, there were black babies being fed to crocodiles, their families getting pulled apart, there's rape, murder, people are getting abused, mutilated, and it's I just don't get how someone can look at another human being and do that with no sort of remorse. And even when you're talking about the conversation with gay people, I have a lot of I have a cousin who's transgender, I have a cousin who's bisexual, I have an aunt who's gay, one of my cousins is gay, so I've been around people of all different walks of life, and I don't look at them any differently because of their orientation or things like that. I did kind of go through more of a weird phase as we started getting everything out in media. You know what I mean? And there are some people who I'm not the one to say if they are or not, but I knew a couple people who I really felt were straight, and they had voiced that a lot throughout their lives, and then it was like right when this became like the thing to be, then they're bisexual or something.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right. Like the hot
right.
Hot
like it's like
topic
a
of the
cool
day.
thing to be, and
yeah.
it's like that's not the point, guys. Like, you know, you got to let people just be who the fuck they want to be and love who they want to love, and I mean who they are. You know what I'm saying? So I've never understood the amount of hate towards something that's different from you, but also
people are scared.
Right. I've come up in households. I mean, my dad is white, my mom is black. My dad wasn't around, but like my great grandfather was somebody I was always close to. So I walk like him, but other than that, I'm black. I have, you know, curly hair. You know what I mean? We don't identify on so many levels. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So maybe that being exposed to that young made me understand that. I mean, literally, people who look different than me are a part of me or just like me. But yeah, I've never really understood, and I think it's just because of fear. It might be biological, the unknown. Typically, when animals see something that they don't like, they're always on defense.
Yep.
So that might be what it is, but either way, as we're evolving and we're getting a better understanding of what we are and who we are and, you know, how we can survive, it's going to be a lot more conducive for our species for us to start understanding each other and not
100%,
killing each other.
100%.
Yeah. So
and, you know, and so that's why, again, we have to talk about it. We talked about cancel culture. I think that, again, there are things that are unforgivable, but there are things that we have to be comfortable enough to have the conversation, or it just breeds more of that fear.
Right.
And then what I was saying about enemies in the Middle East is exactly the answer to how could somebody beat their slaves, rape their slaves, feed the kids to the whatever, because they were dehumanized.
Right.
And religion has not helped this. No. The idea that the others they're not human. You know, so the Jews in World War II were seen as being less than human. Irish immigrants, Italian immigrants, when they were, in the 1900s, less than human. Definitely African slaves, not human. These are your property. Women, it's one of the reasons why in the marriage ceremony with the original, the taking of the last name, she became the man's property.
Yeah.
In the Bible itself, like, you don't covet your neighbor's donkey or his wife, well, because that's his property. So therefore, it's just another thing, not another person.
Right.
That's that kind of stuff we have to move away from, and we are. And we are, not to just be a downer the whole conversation.
No,
we are, but it takes time. When I think about, I love doing this because it blows my mind every time I think about it. When I think about Martin Luther King and the civil rights movement, it feels to me like it should be hundreds of years ago.
Right.
My mom was in college in the 60s.
Yeah.
My dad was out of college. I mean, we're talking about well within my parents' lifetime. Not like, because I'll be 41 next week.
Okay.
So it's not even like it was that long ago. The Civil War, my great-great-grandfather, so my grandfather's grandfather, my grandfather died a couple years ago, told stories about his grandpa all the time, who'd gone off with the Union and fought against the Confederates. It's not that long ago.
Right.
America is such a young country in the span of countries. When I spent almost a year as a singer on a cruise ship, and we were in Egypt. That's an old-ass culture. Mm-hmm. When you go through the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, they've got this big timeline on the wall of the museum. So when Egypt was running shit, there's this little, I remember this clearly, there's this little tick mark on the timeline, and it says, a tent city is forming on the Thames River that will eventually become London. So you think about the Egyptians were running the known world, except for China, because the Chinese are even more so. But like America is like a teenage. America is like a rich teenager.
Yeah.
We have a lot of money and we have a lot of military power, and so therefore we think that might makes right.
Right.
But just like that asshole in your high school that had a lot of money that thought that he knew how to run shit because he had a lot of money and power, we're not as advanced as a culture. So that's why when you think about the civil rights being less than 100 years ago, we're not even that close. I mean, we have a long way to go. But I do think it's getting better.
Yeah.
Today, so we're filming this on October 11th. Today is National Coming Out Day.
Okay.
And I tried like hell, just for the record, to get us a guest that we were gonna. I really wanted to have like
a reveal or something.
So no. Like I tried to get some of the LGBTQ activism people to come on the program to release today for National Coming Out Day. But anyway, we didn't get that done. But I hope to get them on at some point. Anyway, so but today's National Coming Out Day. 20 some years ago, when I was in high school and a couple of my friends came out, it was scandalous. In today's world, gays can get married, but in front of the in front of the Supreme Court right now is a bill to decide should you be able to fire people, but just because they're gay. I can't believe we're still having this conversation. But at least, even in my lifetime, in the last 20 years, things are getting better. So I'm hopeful, especially with your guys' generation being much more open to stuff, that in 20 years it'll be that much better, and in 20 years when my kid is my age, it'll be just that much better, and I guess we'll see.
I wonder that too, though. Is unlimited progressivism necessarily a good thing? I'm just posing the question: is it to keep pushing back the lines on everything? Because when you start looking at unlimited progressivism, and I don't want to enter into anything too controversial, but then you start perpetuating the idea that, well, then fuck gender. Well, you can just decide to be a woman now. And how far does that go? What's the next thing that's going to arise, especially as like medical, technology advances? Well, fuck the idea of man and woman, or both of them, or whatever you want to call it. Now I'm gonna make my skin have scales, and now I'm gonna be half animal, half person, half girl. Like,
you should be able to do whatever the fuck you want to do as an adult, right? It's whatever you want to do with your body or whatever. I just don't like when children get involved. I feel like that's my biggest thing is that, like, I think about this. I don't have any children yet, but I want to have kids here in the next couple years, or 5 to 10, you know what I mean? Sooner than later.
We could talk about that when the cameras were rolling. Yeah. Give you plenty of time, man.
Right. No, but I think the tough thing is that, like, I don't know, you've got to be very careful with minds that haven't been able to develop their own opinions about life. Just because, like, I think progressivism is good. I think we should challenge everything we know currently. Definitely. I think you always should be challenging things that you know, because that's the only way that you learn something new. But the tough thing is, and I get what you're saying about that with, and I don't really know too much about, I still have conversations, like my cousin that's transgender, I haven't been able to sit down and talk with him, but I don't know enough about it, or how people feel, or how they think. I haven't had enough conversations to, like, really form, like, a true opinion on it. I just think that with any of the matters, children need to be able to be unexposed to a lot of that until their frontal lobes are fully developed. Because when you start doing things like giving people hormones, how far along should that happen? You know what I mean? Like, there are certain scenarios that I've seen where before people even go through puberty, where you're getting, like, the shit that makes you want to fuck. You know what I mean? Yeah. Before you're even getting that.
Testosterone.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying testosterone, estrogen for women, you know what I mean? Yeah. What makes us, like, the juices flow. Yeah. You're starting to kind of puppet play with them before they even get that going. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's like, find out what makes your dinky hard or your, pussy wet before you start, like, let somebody figure that out, and experiment too. Like, I'm the type of person, I have never, like, I'm not attracted to other men. I can say, like, that's a good looking guy, but it's not like I'm like
You've been over to my house a lot.
Yeah, I know how you guys get down.
I just want to point out before it gets too far away in the conversation that this is a professional lyricist and rapper, and Dinky Hard is something that just came out. Yeah. So I want a song in the future. I mean, I'm right in my mind, like all the things that rhyme with Dinky Hard. Pussy Wet sounded pretty normal, but Dinky Hard, I mean, and your buddy over there was losing his shit over there off camera when you said Dinky Hard. I just want to know, because I looked over, he had his hat over his head. I'm like, oh, fucking Yoder's gonna lose his shit off the camera over there, right there, man.
Yeah.
But no, and so we had a guest on who's a professor at Mount Mercy, who has worked in the LGBTQ clinic, and who was very pro giving hormone blockers to kids. And I said to her, that sounds kind of nuts. And she was busy saying, oh, no, they don't do anything. And so I actually tried to get, I reached out to the endocrinologist at that clinic who she talked about, and I can't get her to email me back. And I mean, open shout out to anyone working in endocrinology. I would love to have you on the program. I'm not going to jump you about it. I don't know the science that well, but when you're starting to give hormone blockers, I can't really think it does nothing. That just. But anyway, come on the program. Prove me wrong. Again, this is what I want to have. Like, I'm a doctor, but I'm not an endocrinologist. It's been a long time. So, but it just, kids. And my daughter will be 4 at the end of this month. And I mean, frankly, you want to talk about frontal lobe develop, you two aren't even there yet. But I mean, definitely through those young years, people want to be all kinds of stuff. Like, there's no reason I can't become a dolphin, but that doesn't mean that we should be surgically enhancing people or changing the chemistry inside their brain, because that has, back to mental health, that has all kinds of implications in there.
100%.
You said you like drugs. I'm pro legalization of weed, no question. But, I get asked about that all the time in my clinic. And if I'm being a responsible doctor and going on the research, definitely you got to watch out the brain chemistry when people are in their teens and even up into their early 20s with marijuana even. And I'm way pro marijuana, but, you start throwing in extra chemicals in there, the incidence of psychosis precipitating, it's much higher. So, to throw in a bunch of external chemicals and so forth, it just scares the shit out of me, especially 100%. As a parent.
Yeah.
And if my daughter's gay, great. Like, I will embrace that with no problem. She's transgender, great. But I would definitely never entertain the idea of surgery or something like that with somebody that was a child. Again, I'd love to have a conversation with somebody who disagrees with me. One of my former professors at the U, his name is Peter Daniolos. He's a child psychiatrist. I know he would disagree with me. He's too busy to come on the show, but I'd love to have him or someone like that on there just to have that conversation. But I'm seeing eye to eye with you guys. Now, what you were talking about is what they call the slippery slope argument. So how far do we go? And to play devil's advocate of what you said, when you get into so back when gay marriage was being hotly debated, you would get people saying that, well, what's it going to be next? We're going to want to marry animals. We're going to want to marry a tree. I mean, but that's some stupid shit. So I'm not sure the slippery slope argument goes all the way that we should follow that. But there has to be a level at which, you said it better. Let's keep having the conversation. Yeah. But because we have the conversation, people want so much to seem progressive that it's like anything we say goes. And that's why I think Rogan has 7 million followers on YouTube, and his stuff gets millions and millions of views, because he's such a plain-spoken guy who is also left-leaning, but who goes, whoa, wait a second.
Some shits, yeah.
Do you hear yourself when you say shit like that? And frankly, like I wish for a lot of reasons that I was on the Supreme Court. But if I was one of the 9, when that shit came in front of me, I'd get the rest of them together in the office and I'd pour them all a bunch of scotch and I'd be like, do you hear yourselves when you say, should we fire people because they're gay? This is goddamn ridiculous. Jesus Christ, we can't get voted out.
Right.
I mean, our job is to uphold the Constitution, which when the gay marriage thing came through, it was Chief Justice Roberts, appointed by George W. Bush, who swung to the left. Because he is such, and not everything he's ever done I agree with, but he is such a believer in the Constitution despite being a Christian, and his faith would tell him one thing, and he wrote the majority opinion, and it's beautiful. If you've never read it, it's beautiful. And he talks about things like we have separation of church and state, the rights of these Americans must be upheld.
100%.
Amen, hallelujah. And I'm actually hoping that the majority go. I hope it goes against that. I mean, you shouldn't be able to fire people for that. But if that happens, I hope that the Chief Justice votes that way and writes the majority opinion like he did before. because I mean it's just
it's fucking ludicrous.
Can't even believe we're having this conversation in 2019. Right. I mean, for fuck's sake.
Well, and that's the thing is that how does somebody's sexual orientation make them more or less qualified for anything?
Absolutely.
You should be able to fucking go home and have sex with whoever you want, love whoever you want, have a family with whoever you want, and still be able to go to work and provide for yourself or that family. So
yeah.
I don't.
And so to bring it back to music again, country music and rap/hip hop, which again I'd love you to tell me what you think the difference is, because I'm not even sure. Those are the two genres of music where they're seen as being conservative in different ways. So country music is seen as being more of the flag-waving Republican, yeehaw, we'll stick a boot up your ass, it's the American way, and we love Jesus and God bless our troops. And then, again, you can speak to this more than I can, but there was definitely a time, and I'm trying to think if it was Ice Cube, and there's certainly been a thing within hip-hop where it's been like, I think machismo coming out of like the this sort of the masculine view where it's like I can't even say it because it probably gets pulled from YouTube, but wasn't it Ice Cube, real N-words ain't faggots, right? I mean, so like I know what you think because you've sort of put it out there, but what do you think about the genre of music that you're in and like how it's evolved sort of sociologically or whatever the right term is?
I mean, hip-hop is definitely evolving. There is a lot of... I mean, even in my Kevin video, I'm in full makeup and a wig.
Yeah.
And I did that for shock and awe. I'm not bothered by it, or, anybody do whatever they want to do. But hip-hop definitely early on, and then from 2000, 2010. I think... you definitely had a lot of anti-gay dialogue in there, or whatever orientation people wanted to be. Except for you had rappers talking about I got bitches kissing bitches, you know what I mean, and shit like that. So it was fine.
People aren't threatened by that as
much.
Right?
No, it's fine. It's fine when women are physical with each other, but men, it was a bad connotation behind it. I don't know. I mean, I think that rap too is a very big reflection of what the masses are like. Hip hop in general, it changes, but you start to see it kind of mirror what's going on. That's why people like Nas or Jay-Z or just some of the greatest storytellers in rap, they mirror what they have seen. You know what I mean? So things are going to change. You know what I mean? You have gay rappers now. Lil Nas X. I mean, he came out after Old Town Road was huge, but I mean the public seemed to receive it decently well.
Yeah.
I mean he's not a very, very lyrical rapper. It's more on the I guess poppy kind of side of rap. But I don't know. I mean, and I think it may take a little bit of time for rap music to be warmed up to that idea. I don't really know. It's just because of the connotations, I think, too, behind masculinity. A lot of that stuff gets perpetuated. With rap, it's very competitive, very in your face a lot of times. It's very aggressive. So it has that, or you got to be heavy about it. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. It's tough with that. And then to answer the question of hip-hop and rap, hip-hop is the culture. Rap is a part of the culture that is hip-hop.
Okay.
So hip-hop, there's so many things that fall under hip-hop, like producing and making beats. B-boying was a part of hip-hop, or dancing, you know what I mean? It's a whole culture behind it. Rap is just the part of the culture that is hip-hop, or the subculture, I guess, that is hip-hop, that deals with speaking things or saying things, or the poetry side of it. So they go hand in hand, but hip-hop is something that people can love and not be rappers, or you know what I mean. So yeah, that's the simple way to put it.
So I like that. All those years ago, 20 years ago now or whatever, when I was on that bus, they were making a point. They were sort of saying hip hop is more of the sung part of it, and then rap is more of the spoken part of it. And then they were busy arguing between each other who is hip hop and who is rap. And they were saying, I remember this because I obviously knew who they were, but I didn't know enough of their music. They were saying Snoop is hip hop, NWA is rap. you know, but then of course, you know, when Snoop's on with Martha Stewart or whatever, they refer to him as a rapper, but that's also a lot of years ago. So, but I like that, the idea of it's the culture and then sort of the lyricism within that.
Yeah, I mean, you can define a rapper by, I mean, Drake is still technically a rapper, or they would label him as that, but he's very melodic, sings a lot, you know what I mean? And a lot of rap music is transitioning to where there is a lot of melody, or people, even if they are rapping and they're saying hard shit, it might be the tone of their voice isn't conflicting with the melodies and the actual music. It's going with it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think the thing is, too, a lot of times people speak out their ass. I don't know exactly how the conversation went, but a lot of times people want to seem super informed about things. But rapping is a part of hip-hop, you know what I mean? So it doesn't matter, like, whatever you want to define it as. If it rhymes and it's has a rhythm to it and it goes on a beat, you know, you're rapping. Like, anybody can be defined as a rapper.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can even rap over things that are not like hip hop beats. You know what I mean? If you threw on a country, I mean, I wouldn't probably enjoy doing it. It might be a little bit of a task, but if it has a tempo to it, I can pick up something in that pocket.
Sure.
I can rap in that pocket. But rap is a product of hip hop.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. You brought up something that I wanted to talk about if it came up, the idea of, does it rhyme? Does it not? Mm-hmm. Once again, I feel like I need to keep stating this, but I don't know what I'm talking about exactly. But 8 Mile was my first exposure to the idea of a battle. Mm-hmm. And when I first saw it, I was in graduate school in New Jersey, and YouTube was just kind of becoming a thing. And so I watched that movie. I would watch battles online. I went to see a couple live, mm-hmm. and it was very much like what 8 Mile portrayed. Mm-hmm. Two people, they were making fun of each other. It was rhyming. It was brutal in mm-hmm. some cases. And then not that long ago, I watched that movie that was produced for YouTube by Eminem. I don't know if you've seen it, mm-mm. but the battle is very different, and they even make reference to the fact that battling has evolved mm-hmm. into this new thing where there's not beats behind it. The lyrics are more clever, yeah. and they have like double and even triple entendre type yeah. things in it, and it's not the same. The timing's not the same way, yeah. and so then I watched that movie, which then led me to then look at other things online, and it did seem like it was more that way, where what they were saying was clever, mm-hmm. but it wasn't necessarily like the battles that I had seen, you know, however many years ago. So I mean, when you're writing, mm-hmm. rather than have you comment on battle culture, although you're welcome to, like, do you, in your process, are you specifically looking for rhymes and beats? Do you start with the beats and go to the rhymes? Do you do prose more? Like, what's your process with that?
The writing process kind of always changes for me depending on like what kind of headspace I'm in. Sometimes I like to experiment with like acapella, but for the most part, I catch a vibe off a beat, like, and then I'll start writing. You know what I mean? So like, if I hear something that has like minor keys to it and it's very low, you're probably going to hear me go on something that's a little bit darker. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The major keys, I try to be a little bit more melodic. You know what I'm saying? So I tend to get the beat first, and then I find out what I want to do with it after that. But you know, there are times like where I need to like just go straight to hold on. Yeah, actually, when I get the beat and I figure out like kind of my first line or like a flow, I mumble flows a lot. So like I have a lot of voice memos or videos where I'm like, the words, there's no real words that are coming out, but I figure out how I want it to flow, and then I put words to it. And once I find the first end rhyme, I'll start thinking of things that rhyme with that, and I may build lines backwards. I may build lines based off of what I just said in the line before. It just depends on kind of the context of the writing too. Like if I'm trying to tell a story, it definitely has to flow along, seemingly. You know what I mean? But if I'm just talking shit on a record, I may, you know, one line addresses one thing, and then another line may address another. You know what I mean? So. And
are you always looking for the rhyme, or does the rhyme not really matter for you?
No, definitely. I mean, it has to. it doesn't have to rhyme. Like I've done things where, so typically when you write in hip hop, like they'll talk about you writing like a 16, right? A 16 is a typical verse, right?
Okay.
A 16 means that you have 16 bars. The standard way to rhyme is to change your rhyme scheme every 4 bars,
Okay.
right? So say we have a line, and sometimes I'll like you might have like 8 bars that rhyme. Let me think of a verse maybe. Okay, so there's one of my songs. Let me think. You just like I'm trying to think of an in rhyme. Like say like okay, light, right? On Corona, right? Light. Then you may rhyme the last word. It might be bright, and then tight and slight, right? You have those lines, whatever they say before, they all rhyme at the end, and then you'd go on to the next 4. So those are 4 lines there. Well, you're writing a 16, so you have 4 fours, and that's a regular verse. So that's the standard way you can do it. Biggie, like the Notorious B.I.G., he was big on, like a lot of times he would do like 2 lines that rhymed and then go on another 2 lines. But if you study like poetry, a lot of times you can figure out ways to do things differently. Like there are times where I'll have 2 lines rhyme, 3rd line is different, and then the 4th line rhymes with the first 2. So you can switch it up, and that's the fun part about it is like you're able to build things however you kind of want to. But I'm not gonna listen to a song if it's just like free verse poetry. I mean, if it's like free verse and that's the intent, then I can enjoy it. Or somebody's just talking to a beat, and that's understood, then cool. But it's a part of the art, like the fun part. Like how the fuck did he just rhyme that with that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or having lines like that have multiple syllables, but then they all rhyme. You know what I mean? So it's like you could say something about, saxophone and then back at home. And then, you know what I mean? Like you can make a word that has multiple syllables rhyme with something else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or Eminem's really, really big on this, but making things that don't normally rhyme with each other. He was like in an interview and they were like, can you rhyme with orange? And he's like, it's not about, if you just say orange, nothing's going to rhyme with orange. But depending on how you enunciate or hold certain syllables, you have orange, door hinge, 4-inch, 4-inch. You know what I mean?
When he's the master of the cadence too. Like he's almost like Stephen Sondheim to bring a theater reference in. Like Eminem has this cadence to him where it's ba 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 ba. I mean he's just like he does that really well, and then you get that slant rhyme in there. I mean, so it's again, this is all stuff that if you study poetry, you get like the A-B rhyme scheme or the A-A-B-B. That's what you're talking about, or the A-A-A-A. But you can get that. Shakespeare, which again, out of my world, Shakespeare slant rhymed a lot. With that iambic pentameter, but like you can get that. Country music does it so much it makes me throw up a little bit. But they can do that too, right? So they rhyme front porch with Ford. What's the color of the vowel? That's what you're talking about in there. So that's but I agree with you. For me, when I listen to it, like I love it when they get something really clever in there. You think to yourself, man, how in the world did they do that?
No, I have times where I write and I say certain things and I'm like, yo, you just really fucking came up with that shit. Like that's crazy. So you have aha moments too. Sometimes you outwit what you normally had done before. My buddy Reese, he's a really talented artist. He was talking about it. He's like, because I've been in a weird place creatively where I've been like kind of like, okay, like I feel like I've hit a plateau. What do I need to do now to put myself back in like training mode, basically? You know what I mean? Aside from just writing another song, I want to have my process and the way that I write grow. And he's like, dude, you're already fucking doing it. Sometimes you don't realize too, just because of how critical you can be on yourself, that you are evolving. So sometimes you just have it, as I'm writing, I'll come up with a line that's fucking stupid or a cadence. One of my favorite flows that I've ever done, I said, My emotions are ghosts. The goal is to live as a goat, elope as a no till I gross and roll up some smoke from the coast. More impotent than most, I'm Moses, just moving these boats. My opus is locust. I'm focused, chosen to shit on your hopes. They like, and you have all the sounding.
Yeah, that's tight.
But there's full lines that rhyme with full lines. You know what I mean? So I remember when I came up with that, I was like, holy shit, I'm writing it out and I'm saying it. And when I was able to deliver it all, I was like, Jesus, this shit's crazy. So, I think one thing that rap does offer that other genres don't is that you have to have lyrics. Lyrics are the biggest part. Like with R&B or singing or anything like that, sometimes people can just say yeah, and they do a bunch of runs and scat or something, and it's beautiful. You're like, oh my God. You know, and it appeals to like, I think like almost a meditation when people hum or they go, oh or ah, those noises that are good to the ear. And like the E's or the I, you know what I mean? When people make those noises, people can just feel them and vibe. Rap, you come there expecting, I want some flows, I want some shit that's like choppy, crazy, you know what I mean? So,
doesn't that just depend on the artist though?
No, 100%.
Because, I mean, how long did Bust Down Tatiana take to write? You
right.
know what I'm saying? Well, or like We Them Boys.
Right. Well, see, that's the thing is that like with Tatiana, right? The interesting thing about that is we're having like memes and rap are becoming like hand in hand in some ways. Like people are like not, they're just funny. Like even Zach Fox, he's a comedian, but he made all that funny rap shit on Kenny Beats's. Remember the guy, I dipped my balls in $1,000 dressing because I got depression. There's a funny ass video. You'll have to check it out. Zach Fox, he's a comedian. And the rap is like super simple. But Kenny Beats, who's a producer who's trying to be very serious about music, his biggest video is with Zach Fox because it's comedy. There's not a lot of skill involved. He's saying stuff like that's just hilarious. So there is a separation definitely, but all in all, the entire time you still have to fill that time with words. So it still takes some type of skill, although I'm not like a huge Blueface fan.
Well,
like,
that's what I'm saying. I think that this is one of those, the genre is so fast paced and the push to single after single after single after single. I mean, back in the day when people wrote albums at a time, they wrote an album, they went to the studio, produced the album, and then they went and lived life for a year, and whatever happened in that year or 2 years that they weren't recording and they were living life, the next time they got in the studio, they wrote about the last chunk of life that they got done experiencing. Whereas now, people go in the studio and it's like, all right, let's find a beat, and I'm just going to start writing off the top, and then 2 hours later, you got a piece of shit that, you know, because the access has come down so much, people get in the studio all the time. So then they're like, all right, I'm in here, I'm just going to try to crank out a hit. And then you get, I feel like that's why you get so much bullshit.
It's oversaturation.
This oversaturation, it's like, you know, it's like fast fashion.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Everybody's trying to, you know, the trends change so fast. Everybody's trying to keep up with it. So everybody's putting single after single after single out. And they're not experiencing anything. They're not experiencing anything that makes them write true art. You know what I'm saying? So, like, you know, you write from the deepest parts of yourself.
Right, but so that's tough too, though, because when you say true art, it's really subjective, and that's what I've had to get in the mindset of, right? Because Coop, I get it, dude. Like, no, I love hip hop. I love fucking hearing M go off. I love hearing Jay-Z go off. I love hearing Kendrick go off. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I can't say that the simple forms or the microwave music isn't art. Because, I mean, fuck, dude. You might catch me in the club, bust down Tatiana. You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, and again, art's in the eye of the beholder.
Right,
and
100%.
And to your point, you know, it depends on the artist. Because there are artists who can go in with no plan, drop a beat, out comes genius. I think that at some point...
And Jay-Z is one of those. You know what I'm saying?
I think at some point the cream's going to rise to the top. You know, so to drop in, you know, one of the people that I like back into the theater world is Lin-Manuel Miranda. you know, and so he wrote Hamilton. If you don't know, so his first Tony Award winning musical was In the Heights, and there's a lot of rap elements in that. And then Hamilton, which took the world by storm, still is.
Yeah.
You know, shows his genius. And I've seen him on a lot of programs where they give him like rhyme with these 4 things and they drop a beat and he kind of does it.
Yeah.
I mean, that just blows my mind. And in terms of like accessibility, so someone like him, you can sort of seem to do it in the moment. Whereas if you put me in there, God help us, what would come out of me? I mean, it would not be worth anyone's time.
People tend to forget though, like it's still a skill that you acquire over time. The only reason why I put out music the way that I do is because I've practiced. I've just like how Jordan was in the gym shooting all the time, right? That's how he became the GOAT. You know what I mean? LeBron, Kobe. People tend to forget because of how the connotation. You have people from other cultures, just how like you were talking about coming up and like, you know, I mean, even I remember when I told my great grandpa that I made music, never fucking took it seriously, ever, right? Because he's like, it's fucking rap, you know what I mean? Okay, do it, but all right, be at fucking school on time on Monday, you know what I mean? Right. It's a skill. So like when, you know, if somebody turned on a beat, I'm not the greatest freestyler right now, right? That's the part of my art that I definitely want to get down pat. You know what I mean? You can give me a word and I can rhyme with it for a little bit. I might get off and then I have to get back on. And I'm not saying like the craziest shit, but there are people who have practiced this art so much.
Fucking Nate, dude.
Yeah. My roommate is insane. Yeah. You could throw him a word. It's nuts, right? But like, okay, where Nate suffers, right? Nate doesn't know how to count bars. So I got to teach him how to do that. So now he's getting into writing songs and constructing them and forming how when things drop in and drop out. And he's like, where should I put the hook? Is this verse too long? So it's like where I've analyzed, okay, I know how to write a really great song, right? At least in my opinion. Yeah. I know how to write a really great song. I know how to structure it. I know how to have a build up. I know how to have climaxes. I know how to make the hook catchy. And of course, I'm still learning a lot. I'm still learning a fuck ton, and I'm never going to not be learning. But there are just certain elements. So it's like when you have people that have, you know, done all of that, not only, I can't remember the guy's name you said for Hamilton.
Yeah, Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Okay, so he's already proven that he's a phenomenal writer, but he also perfected the art of freestyling, or is good at it. So that's a part of it. Like, you get to a point, and that's what people don't realize, is that genius that happens quickly is just genius that's been learned over time. So it's like now people can just tap into it automatically. Yeah, you could throw Jay-Z in or Kendrick or J. Cole or Drake in a room, give them a beat, 5-10 minutes. I guarantee you they have a hot ass hook already.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. But to temper patience, because here's the thing, I would never try to talk anybody out of their dream.
Right.
You know, if somebody wants to be a rapper, a basketball player, you know, a ditch digger, whatever it is, like, I think that's cool. But I think there does come a point, yes, you can learn how to do it better, but there comes a point where natural talent and you're going to hit a wall at some point. And it doesn't mean you can't necessarily break through it, but to become the GOAT, some of that is born into you. Yeah. I could practice free throws for the rest of my life. I'm never going to be able to take on LeBron
James,
you know, and I actually like, as somebody who's a lot older than you, I actually like that you said that Jordan was the GOAT, because Jordan was the guy in my generation, and most people your generation will go to LeBron immediately. Yeah. So I like that you said that. But, you know, there comes a point where, you know, I think you can learn it, but then to have it, otherwise, if you could just work your way into being a superstar, I'm not sure that's possible for everybody, but I would never discourage anyone from trying, especially if you have that fire, that passion inside of you.
Right.
But you have to be willing to walk this line of, it sucks for a while. So living in New York, you know, when I was living there, I didn't have shit to my name, pounding the pavement, going to auditions, you know, taking jobs that a lot of my friends wouldn't take, but I just wanted to act. You know, I didn't care if it was a smaller theater or a role that people didn't like as much. And so, you know, one of the things I wanted to make sure I asked you, because we got 10 minutes or so before we try to go for 2 hours. You know, I don't know if you have a support job on the side, you know, but, you know, as I was asking about your process, tell if someone was thinking about, getting into music or, wanting to kind of get into what you're doing, like what would be some advice that you would have, and how, when you're balancing the rest of your life, like is music always in the back of your mind, and how do you kind of blend that in with your everyday life? Tell us about that.
Well, it's tough because music was a thing that helped me survive, and then it turned into a passion. You know what I mean? I think that there are a lot of people who want to get into music or just artsy shit in general because culturally it has a really great appeal. People who are really good at it make a lot of money. And it's like the cool thing, It's like, oh, I'm at a party, I'm a photographer, I have great pictures, you know what I mean? Or, oh, I'm at a party, I make music, I can rap. And then somebody's like, okay, rap. And I'm like, all right, cool, you know what I mean? But I don't know. I mean, you have to have a passion for it. Like, dude, fuck the fame, the money, all that shit. The reason why I enjoy doing music is because, one, it keeps me sane. Two, it excites me making new music. You know what I mean? And with everybody that's doing it, like I wake up every morning and I have my affirmations. So I believe genuinely in my heart that I am the greatest of all time. And I feel like that will translate in my life at some point. I don't know when it will come to fruition, but the more I prepare for it, the more I'm going to be ready for that moment where people are actually having those conversations. But I did so much work. So it's like, if you're willing, like I was thinking about this morning. I wish I knew how much money I invested into this. Like if I had a number, I guarantee you it would be in tens of thousands of dollars. You know what I mean? Like all the time. I'm dedicating $100 here, $30 there, studio time, music video. You know what I mean? Clothes for the, you know what I'm saying? So it's
and your time.
Yeah.
So if you spend 3 hours working on lyrics, you could have made $20 an hour or whatever. I mean, so if you ever decide to do that, just don't forget your time is worth 100%. Something too. You being here for 2 hours.
Right.
I mean, definitely.
And so I serve part-time. That's what I do. I'm a server. And so it's like, and I come from a genre too where I literally talk shit in music. You know what I mean? One of my hooks is, I can say the N-word, right? Is that fine?
You can. Okay. I don't know that I can.
Well, no, I just didn't know. So one of my hooks, and so the song Ian, it goes, "Why you mad, nigga? Cause your bitch is hella bad, nigga. And now your son call me dad, nigga. You should really get a bag, nigga, right?" So I'm talking shit. I literally just said, "Why are you mad? Your son is calling me dad." You know what I mean? Like, I get to talk shit, and then I have people who are tipping me less than 20%. Or being, foul to me. And I can't just be like, dude, fuck you. You know what I mean? I would love to. So you have to not only like, okay, yeah, you're sacrificing time where you could be making money, but you have to bite your tongue.
Yeah.
In an art where you use your tongue all the time. That's how you're going to be making money. So it's very fucking hard.
Do you think it would be difficult? Back to what we were talking about with the Chris Brown thing and people getting fame. Do you think if you were making, well, I was going to say millions, but if you were making enough that you could quit your job and just be a full-time musician, do you think you would lose some of that edge because you wouldn't have to be biting your tongue and so forth, or do you think you'd be able to remember it?
No, I think it's going to be dangerous when I'm getting paid for my music, because right now I'm confined to having to do the mundane, boring shit that I hate, that drives me fucking insane, all the time. You know what I mean? So I think that dampens a lot of my creativity. The anger maybe comes out there, but I don't like to write in frustration. I like to have a clear head, and then I will rechannel up those things later to put it down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But typically if I'm very sad or I'm very angry, it fucks with my whole writing process. So I have to be able to be clear about, okay, I remember what was something that you said in your head at that time? How did that make you feel? And then I'm able to convey it perfectly, because now that I'm clear-headed, I can recall these words, or I can describe the situation in this way. I can reassess and remember certain details about shit. So,
Your song F.Y.N.
F.Y.N. Yeah,
was my favorite.
Yeah,
and like I have to say that the later we got, I thought, shit, I'm not going to be able to tell him on camera what I thought his favorite song was. What my favorite song is. I'll link that one down there too. But to me, and like there was nothing I listened to of yours that I didn't like, and I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. Like,
I appreciate
but
it.
That was my favorite, and it was very simply shot. The video was very simply shot, but I felt like you were talking about with 23, the real Jordan Burgett, and I don't know. I've only known you for 2 hours. That song, I felt like you were sitting in my living room, and I was looking inside your brain.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and of course, until the last lyric, I didn't know what it stood for. And I kept thinking, well, he's going to tell me at some point in this song. That to me was very passionate, very raw, very real. That one spoke to me a lot. And it feels like it's apropos for this part of the conversation, because that's what you're talking about. I mean, that's the whole punchline.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that, you know, understanding how to be a little bit more witty with it throughout the process is like cool, because you get those big reveals that people do talk to me about in person later. They're like, man, that was dope how you rap that up, or, you know, just conceptually that was super cool. So yeah, I think that, in going back to anybody who would be wanting to get into this, you just have to understand the amount of sacrifice that you have to make. Like, I have family coming in town from Ohio today I don't ever really see, but I still have to, after this, go to a session and record. So I'm probably only going to see them tomorrow, and then I think they leave Sunday. But I hope that the time that I sacrifice with them now, I can, you know, kind of enjoy it later when I'm doing music full time, and when I'm able to, like, yo, hey, I'm flying you guys out, come see me, you know what I mean? But it may never be, you know, and I'm not going to put that energy out there, but for some people, it may not be that way. I'm a very big believer in manifestation and visualization, so it's going to be that way, and I believe that genuinely in my heart. But if you don't have the nuts or the ovaries or whatever, if you don't have it in you to just fucking buck up some days and take a couple shots, or hold your tongue when somebody talks to you crazy, or, you know, and you've been told by people that you are the coldest in this area, but you have to be quiet while somebody else is doing, you know, their thing, then you don't have it in you. You know what I mean? You have to be passionate, you have to be willing to sacrifice, and you have to understand, too, that you have to be a student to the game. Because this rap shit is not just about you rhyming a couple words. And you need to be techie, you need to be witty. So respect that has come before you, and learn from that, and then you can grow and develop from there. So I think that's the only reason why I'll probably be separated from a lot of the people who do it already, is that I have respect for the game. You know what I mean? And I'm going to use what has come before me as the blueprint. You know,
I think your mindset is right on, and for a variety of reasons. I hope you blow up. I hope all your dreams come true. The thing that, and I hope that when you are, you come back on the show again, and we'll help each other grow. But one of the things that I think will be interesting for you, and then for those of us that are your friends to watch you, is to see just what I'm talking about. I heard a really great talk with George Foreman recently, and he was talking about how, you know, because he grew up so poor, and he was always hungry, both physically hungry, you know, but then he was hungry to be the heavyweight champ. Right. And he said even when he was a millionaire, you know, because he then came back and was the heavyweight champ again when he was older than me. He said I never lost that hunger. But I look at my kids; they don't. All 5 Georges and all 5 girls, they don't have the hunger.
Right.
And he kept talking about, how can I convey that hunger to my kids? And he said, I don't know, but like, they don't have that. And this is the theme that's come up now a few times, which is, you know, it'll be interesting to see for you, you know, because I believe you know, that you can manifest it, that you can keep that edge, you can keep that hunger. But I think it's a lot easier when you're hypothesizing it versus when you do have that with Conor McGregor, when you have that padded bankroll to go, so why should I get up and get my ass kicked in the gym today? Right. You know, how am I going to get that edge? I'll try to think back 20 years ago to when that guy told me off when I was waiting tables. But man, that was a long time ago where, you know, I've been living the good life for a while. Like, I hope you're right, man. I hope you're able to keep that, because that's gonna keep you putting out the real lyrics and the real music that I know you've got in you. So that's
100%.
That's good.
100%. I think the hunger too is something that, once it's there, if it's genuinely there and you really, really are passionate about this art, you'll always have it. You'll always be able to recall it. And I think that's something that you learn in this process. Because if I've done everything it takes to become a Drake, a Kendrick, a J. Cole, a Jay-Z, that will never change.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's those scenarios where people don't develop it, and then they get in those positions where, or if they use this as more of a tool, then they, you know, because I want to get into film, I want to do other stuff too, but all in all, hip hop is always going to be my love. You know what I mean? So Yeah, I think in time, of course, it'll be an evolution that I will be able to probably talk about, like you said, in the future when things are big time. We'll come back on and be able to have this conversation again.
Yeah,
but
I sure hope so.
Yeah, no.
And I think your mindset is right in that if you go into it looking for fame and money, even if you find that it's going to be a hollow victory, but you have to do it for the art. So and this is a conversation he and I have had when it's come to what's eventually been the fruition of this show, which is if you're trying to put stuff out there that you think people are going to like, it's not going to be there. But if you keep doing what you know is good, putting your soul on the line, your passion out there, the audience is going to find you, which is what happened with Muda Wolf, right? I mean, you put it out there, it was awesome. It spoke to people. Boom, your popularity went up and all that. And I just hope it's going to be better and better things for you, man. And I think it's awesome. We usually wrap up at about 2 hours, but if you're game for it, as much as you want to share, I'd love to hear about some of your mental health struggles because, like you said, number one, men, we aren't good about talking about it. Number two, in the African American community, it's not really that well talked about. Yeah. If we can extend a little bit over our 2 hour mark, like why don't you, as much as you're willing to share, I don't want to.
I'm here for it. I thought we would be going long. I watched and listened to 3-4 hour podcasts, so I'm not. However long you guys want to go, I'm down to talk about it.
We could probably do another half hour.
Yeah.
And then
well, let's try to talk about that a little bit, and then we'll wrap it. And here's the thing, man, you can come back on. Like we'll have you back on in the future. But since you dropped it out there right in the beginning, I'd be remiss to not ask about it. And I think it can be so powerful coming from. I can say the same things, but it won't come across the same way. I'm 20 years older than you, and I'm a white guy. So hit us like as much as you want to talk about it.
I think it all started the beginning of my life. Not having my dad around, that had me question a lot of stuff already, you know what I mean? And then my mom being 16, she's from Chicago, she's from the South Side, she dealt with a lot of trauma that she was not able to get help for until her later years in life. So I think I was kind of destined to have to go through the mental shit that I go through right now. And it's a tad sad sometimes when I look back and I think about it, but I don't fault anybody in the process. My dad was a kid when and my mom conceived me, so he was a man. He was able to run off and do whatever. Men typically are able to leave the family unit. Mm-hmm. Mothers feel more confined by it, so they're the ones who stay. So I don't fault either of them, but it really, coming up like that really, really did a lot. And for a long time, I thought it ruined me. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I mean, I never really had examples of my mom, my stepdad got married when I was 12, but at that point, I'd already been the man of the house for however many years. So when my mom and my dad got, and I call him my dad a lot just because he was the one who raised me. I call him Pops, but... So my stepdad got in the picture. I was already self-sustaining a lot. Of course, I couldn't drive, but I would be at home by myself for hours. I would cook for myself. I could iron my clothes. I did laundry. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it just got to a point too where I started to feel very unworthy of a lot too when I was a kid, just because my dad wasn't around. I'm like, why? What? You know what I mean? You're out here making bonds with other people. And I think it's good, too. I don't have any siblings from him. I have siblings from my mom. But I feel like I probably would have had spite towards another child if he was involved in their life when I was younger. Now, if he had another kid, I don't give a shit. You know what I mean? But I remember he dated some chick a while back, and he really cared about her 2 kids a lot. And I was like, fuck them kids. I was like Michael Jordan, fuck them kids, dude. You know what I mean? I don't know. So I think I've gone through a lot just mentally, and that's my biggest struggle every day. It's getting up, getting out of bed, going and handling my day. And people don't know that. People always think, and that's the bad thing too, is that there's this assumption or connotation behind me, and I don't know why. I think it's maybe because I have these very open. I'll tell anybody I'm going to be the greatest of all time, and people think it's funny, it's laughable, or they get so caught off guard, they're like, he's arrogant, you know what I mean? No, it's not by any means. It's the confidence that is required to actually thrive in it. You know what I mean? But no, I struggle every day. I'm a very insecure individual. I'm very dark. Suicide is actually something I think about every day, but it's not on a line of like when I was younger, I actually was going to do it. Now that I'm older, it's just more of okay, now that death is inevitable. Our mortality is a big thing, so it's like we think about that a lot, especially as we're getting older, health and stuff like that. But no, I mean, I don't think that suicide technically is something that occurs or you do when people always it's like a weak thing to do, like you opt out of the game. But no, I think it takes a level of courage to know that you have all these people here still, but you're taking your life into your own hands. So I'm not saying that as in hey, go and do it. I don't think anybody should. I think you should definitely try to, as much as possible, confront and deal with your demons, what I'm going to be talking about in my next project. But my mind in a lot of ways, and I just saw the Joker movie. I've seen it twice now. I'm going to see it again, and probably as many times as I can as it's being in theater. It's probably my favorite movie of all time, like right now.
Wow.
And it's very twisted. It's sick. It's in a lot of ways. You get to see Arthur Fleck. Fleck. Yeah. I think it's Fleck. P. Fleck. Yeah, Arthur Fleck. You get to see the slow descent into him becoming the Joker, right? And when you were talking about earlier in the interview, it made me think about this. So you go out in public, you leave the gym, nobody cares about you coming out sweaty, but Justin Timberlake does it, and it's all over headlines, right? And I remember at the end of the movie, because you don't get to see him, he becomes the Joker basically in the last 30 minutes of the movie. You get to see Arthur transition into it. All these things happen to him, and it's just a slow progression into someone who doesn't get proper mental health services and then dealing with trauma. And he says it in the end when he's on the comedian show, and he's like, when I killed those 3 guys, it was such a big deal because they worked for Thomas Wayne. But he's like, if it was me, you'd walk over me laying in the street. You know what I'm saying? So I was just very intrigued by that because people don't realize, for somebody who lives in a very dark place, it's a task for me to get up. You know what I mean? It's a task for me to get in the shower. It's a task for me to go and do my work, or even something that I'm passionate about. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of energy that goes into that. So being in that dark place, you learn more about your demons than you do about your angels. You know what I mean? So it's almost surprising sometimes when I meet people who are good. It warms my heart a lot, and I'm just so entranced by them because typically I'm used to running into, or I'm living with my demons. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I think the mental health thing is tough. It's a progression, and sometimes there are rare cases where, and you would know this, that people don't show a lot of signs. Like what Zac Efron just played, what's his name? Ted Bundy, right? And how they were talking about how he came up with a pretty normal childhood and normal family, and then the motherfucker just starts killing people brutally. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know what his story is, but I could tell you that if I just went out on the street and started killing people around me would be like, you know what? It kind of makes sense. You know what I'm saying? My God, I would hope I would never get to a point where I'm fucking I lose it completely. But no, I think a lot of times when we sit back and we take the time to pick apart the things that a person has gone through, sometimes it makes sense, So,
Well, I appreciate that, and did you ever see a therapist or a psychiatrist?
I have,
like that?
Yeah, on and off. The one that I went to before, because I was an alcoholic for a long time, a couple years. I was drunk every day. I went to one that specialized in drug and alcohol addiction, and she was really good. And I got things in check, so I don't drink that much anymore. Like, this might be my one drink I have today.
Sure.
And I really don't at all. But she went and she works for, like, I think CRPD now or some shit.
Okay.
So I don't have one at the moment. My mom's really been pressing me a lot to get back into one because I've had a lot of, like, dark stuff going on. So I mean, yeah, it's definitely a good outlet. I think too, though, I'm a good person about, like, I'll make an excuse for not doing certain things just because I'm moving so quickly.
Sure.
You know, so I may not find time. I'll find time for everything else, but sometimes it's hard to kind of confront those things too, you know.
Yeah, if other people listening are struggling with the same kind of thoughts or, you know, wondering about getting help or something like that, what would you say to them?
I just say just do it. You know what I mean? Take the step. Go. You know, a lot of times people don't exercise that outlet, and then they get really low, and then they want to kill themselves, and then it's like a reactive measure, not a proactive measure. So mental health is something that it's just like your body. You know what I mean? If you're not taking care of your body, and then you are forced in a pressured situation where a lot is required, you may tear a muscle or sprain something or break something because your body's not used to it. But if you're in the gym constantly and you're put in strenuous situations, your body is going to be adjusted to it. It's going to be strong. It's going to be able to push against that weight. If you go to a gym, you're under the bar, and somebody puts 245 pounds and you've never lifted in your life, you're going to be seriously hurt. But if you have been lifting and, you know, a couple weeks ago you maxed out at 200, you might be able to push through that 245. It might be a fucking, oh my God, you're struggling, you know what I mean? But you might be able to deal with that weight. So, I mean, from anybody else out there, like, just do what you can, you know, and also find things aside from counseling that may help you out. I think counseling should be definitely a direction you take, but other things to keep you maintained. You know, you're only going to be probably seeing a professional once or twice a week. I don't know if people really do it twice a week if it's necessary, but once a week. So it's like you may have other things that come up, so you need to find the things that keep you grounded. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah. I would say that.
I obviously agree, given what I do for a living. So I appreciate you saying it, and I swear for any of my patients listening, I didn't set that up. Like that's beautifully said. I often draw the correlation between physical health and mental health. They're seen as being very different, but they're really not. Right. You know, and I think being proactive, like you say, is really really important. And there's a lot of stigma behind it, and there shouldn't be. Just like if you have diabetes, you should see your doctor. You know, if you're and you want to catch it early. You know, you want to treat diabetes before your A1C gets to be 8, 9, 10. I mean, you want to start to get it early. Same thing. You don't have to wait until you're in crisis to call one of the crisis lines, to, you know, go see a counselor, to go see a doctor. Absolutely. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
Well, Jordan, man, we're gonna wrap up here, but before we go, I want to really thank you for coming on. I want to thank you for being so honest and us having. This is why I love this show, man. The conversations go in all these just awesome directions, and we get everyone's thoughts and so forth. We always like to say to the guests, you know, it's conversation with interesting people. If there are people that you know that you think are really interesting, we definitely want to know who they are, and we'll drop your name and see if we can get them on. Before we wrap up, finally, I want to give you the mic to talk about anything you want to pitch, like where they can find you on social media. If you have concerts or albums or stuff you want to say, the mic is yours. Go ahead.
For sure. So I'm really active on probably Instagram and Twitter, just at _Jordan Burgett, JORDAN BURGETT. YouTube is just Jordan Burgett. I have all my music up on all the streaming platforms: Apple Music, Spotify, iTunes, Tidal, Amazon Music, Google Play, like literally every single one that's out there. It's just Jordan Burgett. So check me out, I guess.
All right. And we're going to link all that stuff down below in the description box of whatever platform you're listening to. So dude, it was so great to meet you. Thanks so much for coming on. And anybody listening, thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
For sure.